Hello and welcome back to another classic WoW video. Today we are covering cloth farming, basically where you can get different types of cloth. We will go through them in chronological order, starting with linen cloth. Cloth in general is used for first aid, which is a profession I recommend everyone get. It's useful to everyone in different scenarios. You can use it for questing, PvPing, raiding, dungeons, anything really. You also need a ton of cloth for tailoring, which is a lucrative profession for a lot of cloth users like mages, priests and warlocks. Many even level tailoring to craft a bound on pickup item like Robe of the Archmage, for them to drop tailoring and pick up engineering. Others also convert cloth into bags through tailoring and sell or equip the bags. So you can see, cloth is always in demand. As a general rule of thumb, for max efficiency while farming cloth, you want to kill humanoids and you want to be a mage. Mages have a unique ability to farm a bunch of mobs using area of effects, spells like Blizzard, Flame Strike, Arcane Explosion, Frost Nova and Cone of Cold, meaning they can kill tons of mobs at the same time, while other classes might only be able to pull one mob at a time. These farms I'm about to list, however, can be done by any class, but obviously mages will have an advantage. Now before we get into the cloth farms themselves, I want to take a couple of seconds to shout out my Discord channel, which is linked in the description. It's a rapidly growing gold making community where we chat about anything, and especially gold making. I also usually show off a farm or two over there long before I make a video on it, since I try to compile many farms into one video. So if I find a good farm, I will tell people about it on Discord first. So if you want to take advantage of a farm before it goes live to thousands of people on YouTube, Discord is where you want to be. Alright, now it's time to get into the cloth farming. First off, we have linen cloth. In general, this can be farmed by humanoids in your first 2 to 3 starter zones while leveling. For example, as a human, you can find these in Elven Forest, Westfall and Redridge Mountains. If you're a dwarf, you can find them in Dunmarrow, Loch Modan and Wetlands. If you're an orc, you can find these in Durotar, the Barrens and a bit in Ashenvale. In the third zone you will get a mix of linen and wool cloth, but you should get a little bit more linen than wool. This is mostly the type of cloth you don't farm for, since you'll get more than enough while leveling anyway, but I'll show you my favorite locations anyway. Next up we have wool cloth. This usually drops from the 3rd and 4th zone you level in, usually mobs in the level range of 20 to 30. Good farms for wool cloth are the Stockades, Shadowfang Keep and Bale Moden in Southern Barrens. The Dead Mines also drop a good mix of linen cloth and wool cloth if you need both, plus the Furbolgs west of the lake in Ashenvale drop a lot of wool cloth. Also the Harpies in Stonetalon Mountains and the Gnolls and Orcs in Redridge are also good farms for wool. To give you a rough idea of how much wool you can farm in certain dungeons, one run of the Stockades gives you between 30 and 50 wool, and it takes 5 to 10 minutes, depending on your class and your level. To do it in 5 to 10 minutes you need to be a priest or a mage, maybe even a paladin, and you want to be level 50 plus for easy kills by AoE damage. Next we have silk cloth. So right now in phase 1 the price of silk cloth is a bit screwed up because of massive SM farming, AoE farming and just a mass supply of silk. This might become less of an issue later on, but with the AoE farming meta I would suspect SM stays a pretty popular AoE leveling dungeon for alts and newcomers to Classic, which will keep the price of silk somewhat low. But if you for some reason want to farm your own silk cloth, they drop from mobs in the level range of 30 to 40. I would say the best place to farm this is in Scarlet Monastery, by doing AoE runs either as a group while leveling or by yourself at max level. But if you don't want to do dungeon runs, here's a couple of other farms. You have the Ogres and the Syndicate in Alterac Mountains, plus the Centaurs and Kobolds in Thousand Needles. Next up we have Mageweave cloth, which once again is probably best farmed in dungeons like Sulfurak. Mageweave cloth in general drops from mobs in the level range of 40 to 50, with mobs level 45 plus being best to grind for this specific type of cloth. If you want to farm them outside of dungeons, I would recommend different spots in Feralas, the ogres and the furbolgs mostly, and there's tons of them condensed down south in Feralis, so you can easily farm a ton of cloth there. You also have the pirates, humanoids and ogres in Tanaris, which are really good for farming Mageweave, and the pirates are also a really popular reputation grind and a mage AoE leveling grind spot, so you can go there as well for those reasons. As a final optional zone, you can also farm some Mageweave from the Deadwood camp in Felwood, and you'll also find some other types of cloth there, like Runecloth and maybe even Felcloth. Alright, so I guess it's time for Runecloth now. Runecloth will drop from mobs level 50 and above, with the sweet spot being level 55+. Runecloth can be farmed in any dungeons at level 50+, and especially with the new Mage AoE dungeon meta, you can get tons of them from Blackrock Depths and Lower Blackrock Spire very fast. Runecloth is used in quite a few endgame crafts, but it is also something almost everyone has access to, since it drops from dungeons that you would already be doing to farm endgame gear. However, if you want to farm some Runecloth outside of dungeons, here are some additional farms. Remember that most of these farms are also really good to do for world drops, vendor drops, recipes and more. These spots in Western Plaguelands are really nice, especially the acre fields with undeads, since they are really easy to kill. The Eastern Plaguelands is basically the same as the Western Plaguelands, but higher level mobs and less condensed, since it's a bigger zone. Silithus can also be a nice place to farm for cloth, and Deadwind Pass for certain recipes and formulas that you can farm there while also farming cloth. Now I would advise you to farm Runecloth and Felcloth together, so let's get into the final cloth farm of the day, which is Felcloth. Felcloth is a bit more difficult to farm because it only drops from satyrs, and it has a very low drop rate. If you spend an hour farming satyrs, you can expect anything from 1 to 15 Felcloth per hour, 15 being very high. Exactly how many you get will depend on how fast you kill, which again depends on whether you single target or AoE pull, which class you play, how well geared you are, and yeah, a few variables there. So for Felcloth you have two different zones you can farm in, Felwood and Ashara. You also have 3 different locations or 3 different camps in each zone where you can farm. So if one spot is taken, you have 2 other options in each zone. Felcloth is needed to craft Mooncloth, which is used to craft 16 slot bags and lots of other high-end tailoring gear. You can also use Felcloth to craft the Felcloth armor, which I believe is pre-raid best for warlocks. Farming Felcloth is a really nice way to make some gold, and it should stay relevant all throughout Classic. The price might bounce up and down a bit. Right now it's 3.5 gold each on my server, meaning if you get 6 per hour, you'll make roughly 20 gold per hour from Felcloth alone from these farms, and getting 6 of them would be like roughly average. On top of that, you also get a lot of vendor items, greens, potions, recipes, and the chance of obtaining world epics. But since this is a cloth farming video, I won't get too much into all the items you can get here outside of the cloth. If you want to know more about some of the items you can obtain from some of these farms outside of the cloth, feel free to check out my different gold farming videos, which includes some of these spots. So there it is, my cloth farming guide. This was a short and simple guide, and it was one I really wanted to make since I am currently leveling a mage myself, and I know I will need a ton of cloth to level all my tailors for the Mooncloth crafts. If you're wondering why I'm leveling up multiple characters with tailoring, check out my passive gold making in Classic WoW video. Pretty much everything is explained there. Cloth farming in Classic WoW is something I always wanted to research just to have some farming alternatives, but it just seemed too simple to be worth making a video about. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully it was good enough for a guide. Since there are so few different types of cloth in Classic, it really limits the depth of the video, and there are also limited amount of farms out there for cloth. But hopefully you learned about a couple new spots from this video. You might also see a small spike in price of different cloth, as it is required for different repeatable quests, or quest turn-ins for reputation with different factions, so even though it might not be worth it to farm it right now, it might turn out to be really worth it later in Classic. So yeah, there we go, different zones and different spots you can farm different types of cloth for your gold, tailoring or first aid needs. I hope you found this video informative and helpful, and I hope it helped you out in one way or another. If there's any specific classic video you want me to make sure you leave a comment in the comment section, or join my Discord channel and let me know over there. I try to make videos that my subscribers are interested in, so whenever people ask me questions or recommend me stuff to make videos on, I always keep that in mind whenever I make videos. I'm trying to cover as much as possible when it comes to gold making and professions in Classic, and to provide helpful guides unlike any you've ever seen. If there's anything you'd like to see me do differently, anything you'd like to change about the video, leave some constructive feedback in the comments. But yeah, that is it for now. If you did in fact like the video, please take the time to slap a like on it, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.